Welcome to Testimony Mountain. I am so glad that you're here today. Encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone who you think may benefit from it. And I want to just share a little bit more about dragons. And I don't want to use this as a fascination topic type of thing. Oh, now we're going to talk about dragons and all that. But it is a real reality, especially for survivors. I believe that there's a lot more involvement with dragon entities, as well as possibly the natural creation and internal parts. And so I just want to share a little bit from my journey. It was interesting to me that the topic of, dragons has surfaced on a number of different platforms recently. It had showed up in our community, and 2 weeks ago I had asked Jessie if she would share on that. And she was like, yeah, just this morning I shared on Aquarius Rising about that. And so it, when you see that, okay, God is exposing something, again, for our good, for our benefit, for our freedom, and for us to walk this out with Him. And so part of the reality, I've explained some of this before, but for anybody who might be new, is that part of the cult's strategy is to develop internal reality of what is going on outside. And that's how they continue to control. And so understanding that we can have internal dragons, they're not really dragons, they are parts of us that believe that they're dragons, and then may be controlled or communicating with external dragons. And so again, that's how they can keep control over us in a way that isn't obvious to the outside eye, of not someone out there, dictating our every move, but they can do it on the inside through those internal parts. And so we had some dragons come up in some other encounters that we had dealt with. And then when I went into my session with Joe a couple of weeks ago, what appeared was a yellow or golden dragon. And I was kind of surprised at the color. But what began to come out was, again, this was in my system, internal system. And there was this labyrinth of death that was in this dragon's lair. So that was kind of the imagery of the system inside of me. And I saw this little part of me, and she was dressed in yellow, and I understood her to be the golden child, and that she had to walk this labyrinth of death very carefully because they would shift things on her and different things would happen. And if she didn't do it just right, that, there'd be, in her mind, eternal punishment. And also the understanding that this internal labyrinth of death was connected to star systems, particularly the Draco star system. I understood that the golden dragon was a oracle dragon. That's the wording that I heard, and was used in different ways for the word that comes is mind files. And so I saw these pictures that would be in somebody's mind, and the dragon said that they could take files out and they could put files back in. And so again, something very important for us to understand, where they may be trying to remove memories and put in false memories, cover memories to cover their tracks, so we're not aware of what they're doing. And so anyway, just the revelation of this was coming forward. I also saw 4 portals, and the best way that I can describe them is it looked like an inverted cathedral ceiling. And so, a few months ago, I did one on the Sistine Chapel, and the ceilings and stained glass windows and pictures and so on were actually portals used by entities. And so this is what that was like, but they were inverted, these kind of depression things. They were beautiful, beautiful. But my understanding is it required incredible torture and sacrifice for those portals to be opened and to be used. And so at this point, we were inviting Jesus in to show us and reveal. And I saw him open up a white door and offer the golden child and the dragon, that they could leave. And, the golden child really wanted to, but when she went to start to leave, what we saw wrapped around her legs was all these wires, and that she would be electrocuted if she tried to go out. And so Jesus was so very tender with her and began to unwrap those wires from around her legs, and picked her up and held her gently. At that point, I heard a ringing in my left ear. I let Joe know, and she prayed. And what was interesting is it seemed to be a signal to the golden child, and I heard play dead. And so it's like she went completely limp in Jesus's arms, as if she was lifeless. And so Jesus explained to her that she didn't have to follow the program anymore, that he had a way of freedom and escape for her. And so she really wanted it, and so did the dragon part. And as they were getting ready to do that, other images began coming in, and it was of one of the Jesuit fathers, and he was on a torture wheel, and all bloody and banged up and cut up, and immediately knew that this was that threat. If you leave, this will happen to those you love. So again, Jesus was dealing very, very gently and kindly with them all, letting them know that he had a way out and that there was protection for those who we love. If we just ask Jesus, and he's happy to provide superior protection than the cult or anyone else can provide. And then I saw the Lord wrap the whole system in this white handkerchief, just representing that he was holding it and walking it through a process of restoration. And then I saw the river of living water just come into that system and begin to transform it. So instead of this horrible, dragon layer, darkness, death, and all of those kinds of things brightened up, and grass began to grow where the living water was flowing. And then what surprised me is as the living water began to touch the stones on the labyrinth, the stones came to life, and they were actually parts of me, again, that had been programmed that they were dead, lifeless stones, and that they had to be positioned in this labyrinth of death for the golden child and for the golden dragon and for all these other purposes. And able to see many of those parts just dancing and playing in the river with joy. And so that's kind of where we ended the session. I didn't see complete restoration of the whole system, but believing that it was happening. And Joe mentioned, the living water could also flow to other systems. And so seeing it actually drip out into other systems. But the next day, I, was just journaling with the Lord and inquiring about this. And what came forward is not all of those stone parts receive the living water. And many of them were very angry and going, we suffered and all of this. And, we don't know if we're ready for the living water. And again, this often happens, where the true family, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are not trying to force the will of our parts, but gently offering, what they have available. And so was able to work with those parts some more until they too were ready to receive that living water. And so there may be more to discover and understand about all of these different parts. But I'm so grateful for God's restoration that it is in that kind of white handkerchief of their love. And they are at work. I get to partner with them in this process, but ultimately they are the ones who are in charge. And this takes the stress and pressure off, because if I had to figure out every system and every part and try to make all this work, I can't. But I know that true Jesus is the author and the finisher of our faith, and we can trust them step by step as they are working through all of our parts and systems and so on. So I hadn't planned to share this, but I'll just add a little bit onto this. Uh, a friend and I were talking about some of these encounters with dragons and working through our process together. I had this flash picture of a part of me in something that sort of looked initially like a hallway, but as I began to process it, was in a tree. It was this, the wood was very smooth and very beautiful. I love wood, and it was very polished and natural looking. Later on, when I was in a session with Joe, the Lord took me back to that place, and I began to feel what that part was feeling in just this loneliness, despair, abandonment, rejection, hiding. But also, this was better than the alternative, which was, kind of hell type of torture and so on. And so we invited Jesus into the scene, but I was having difficulty seeing him actually come. Now, God is always with us. He never leaves us, never forsakes us. But these pictures that we see, they're indicative of how that part feels. Jesus can't come in here. It's too bad. It's too hard. Or nobody can come in here because we're hiding away. Nobody is safe. And so Jesus did offer that she could leave and that she could go to this beautiful meadow that he would provide for her. And she immediately panicked and freaked out at that because she prefers confinement because it's safer. The open space, you can't see where your next attack is coming from and that type of thing. And so she felt much safer in an enclosed place. And the true Jesus knows this, but he was wanting to encourage her to explore. And so he asked her what she needed to feel safe. And with a whole bunch of angels and eventually a bubble of protection over her, she was able to make that transition to the meadow, which was awesome. We were close to the end of our session. We only had a few minutes left. But I heard kind of a controller type of voice say, 1 down, 5 to go. And up to that point, I had only been aware of that one part. But when I looked around the corner, I saw another part of me that was fully embedded in the tree. I heard, on life support and kind of one with the tree. And she very much believes there is absolutely no way that she can leave, that she is stuck there for eternity. And then I looked around the corner again, and there was 4 more parts who were in cages, chained up, and rats were nibbling on them. Really a horrific place. But they are there as punishment or sacrifice so that the other parts can function. And so it was at the end of our session. We didn't have time to pursue that. We were able to just give those scenes to true Jesus and trust that there will be a timing when he will bring full restoration to them as well. And so, I hesitated a little bit to share this last one because it didn't, result in a restoration that I could share at this time. But I know that it's coming. And so the true family knows the timing for all of these things. Again, we don't have to try to figure it out. We just get to let them lead and guide step by step with this. And they have a way through. And so even for that part that believes it's impossible, I know there will be a time when she will be able to get free from that tree. And so just encouragement, wherever you are at, the true family, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, have a way of escape. It may take time for us to work with parts to be willing to make that transition, but it is available. And the more we're working with our parts with kindness and love, with being able to see them through true family's eyes, that there is a way of escape, and that there is restoration. This gives us courage. And so I hope this encourages you today to know that true family care and that you're not alone. And so I just want to bless you with this, and we'll see you next time on Testimony Mountain.